Ever get that feeling like you just want to cut to the chase, get right to the heart of something?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you want the real understanding, the stuff that stays with you.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of the whole point of this deep dive, right? Today, we're focusing on Wisp, A Story of Hope, the book by Zana Fraillon. And of course, we can't forget those incredible illustrations by Graham Baker Smith.
I think anyone tuning in probably already knows a bit about the book. It's about a young refugee, but we're going to dig into some of the finer points here.
Exactly. We've got this whole outline about it, all the details about the story, the characters, the themes, even a bit about how it's been received by readers.
So we've gone through all that to pull out the most important stuff.
Yeah, and I think what makes Wisp so interesting, at least for me, is how it approaches this really big, complex issue with such sensitivity and nuance.
It's definitely not hitting you over the head with anything.
Right. It uses this gentle narrative, almost poetic at times, and those really powerful visuals to create a story that's both moving and thought-provoking.
For sure. So where should we start with this?
Well, I guess it makes sense to start with the book itself. It's called Wisp, A Story of Hope. And, well, it's about hope.
As the title suggests.
Right. And specifically, it looks at hope through the eyes of a young refugee, a boy named Idris. The story is really designed to help, I guess, especially younger readers understand what that experience might be like.
Yeah, it's definitely meant to be accessible. And one thing that really struck me from the outline is how integral the illustrations are to the storytelling.
More than just pictures, right?
Way more. The way they're described, it sounds like those illustrations really work hand in hand with the words to create this emotional depth and convey the real heart of the story.
And speaking of heart, we should probably talk about Idris. I mean, think about this. His whole life has been within the walls of this refugee camp. He's never known anything else.
Yeah, can you imagine? A world made up of only tents and fences.
He has absolutely no memories of life outside of that. That's it. That's his whole world.
And the outline doesn't shy away from the harsh reality of the camp either. They describe it as, well, kind of sad and lonely. There's this constant presence of fences and shadows, which really reinforces that feeling of isolation.
It's almost like those physical barriers are representative of the emotional and psychological barriers Idris is facing too.
Absolutely. And then everything changes with the arrival of the Wisp. It's no coincidence that Idris is the first one to notice it.
There's this beautiful little detail in the story where he picks it up from the dirt so gently.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It's such a small thing, but it says so much about who he is as a character. There's this kindness in him, this innate tenderness.
Yeah, and maybe even a hint of longing for something more, something beyond his current circumstances.
Absolutely. And when he holds the wisp, he feels this, well, the outline describes it as a tiny hint of longing. It's interesting, though, because his experience with the wisp is different from the other people in the camp.
That's a really crucial point. For the other inhabitants, the Wisp acts as a trigger for memories of their lives before the camp.
Right, like little flashes of the past.
Exactly. And for them, it's bittersweet, right? It brings back the pain of what they've lost. But it also offers this glimmer of hope that maybe someday they can reclaim that freedom.
But Idris has no such memories to draw on. He's never known that kind of freedom.
So for him, the Wisp represents something different entirely. It's not about the past, it's about the future. It's this tangible symbol of the possibility of change, the promise of a life he can only imagine.
It's almost like a seed of hope being planted.
Exactly. And that distinction is where the theme of hope really starts to resonate.
Now let's talk about the other people in the camp for a minute. The story emphasizes this sense of loneliness, even though they're all living in such close proximity.
They're surrounded by people, yet they're still deeply isolated.
And then the wisp arrives, and when each person holds it, it unlocks these vivid memories from their past lives. It's like a key to their lost world.
We get these really specific examples in the outline. An old man who suddenly remembers music. There's a woman who recalls a forest and this beautiful image of colorful rain. It's like these sensory details from their past are suddenly brought back to life.
It makes you think about how much our memories are tied to our sense of self, our sense of who we are.
For sure. And the way the Wisp works, it creates these moments of connection between the people. They're sharing these memories, these feelings, and it offers them a temporary escape from the harsh reality of the camp.
But the outline also points out that there's this undercurrent of hopelessness among many of the adults. They've been through so much, and it's like they've lost faith in the possibility of a better future.
So against that backdrop of despair, the arrival of the Wisp and Idris's unique interaction with it become even more powerful. It's this injection of hope, this reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still potential for something positive to happen.
So how does the wisp actually arrive?
It's almost magical. The outline says it's carried in on the evening breeze. And as we mentioned, Idris is the only one who initially notices it.
It's like this subtle, almost imperceptible force of change.
And then it moves through the camp, and the way it works is really interesting. Each person holds it to their ear, whispers once, and then boom, these memories come flooding back.
And these memories are so vivid, it's not just like, oh, I remember that time we went to the store. We're talking about the sound of music, the feeling of being in a forest, the vibrant colors of rain. It really emphasizes how much they've lost, how different their lives are now.
Absolutely. So when it's finally Idris's turn to hold the wisp, there's this sense of anticipation, both for him and for us as readers.
I bet he is excited.
Yeah, but then comes this realization, this quiet understanding. He has no memories to unlock. His entire life has been within the camp. He has no other reality to compare it to.
That must be such a profound moment for him, to realize that his whole existence has been shaped by this one place.
And it's in that moment that the wisp's meaning shifts for Idris. It goes from being a key to the past to a promise for the future. It represents this potential for something different, something better than what he currently knows.
And how does he respond to that?
Beautifully, he starts to dance, freely and uninhibitedly. It's like this understanding, this hope for the future has blossomed within him. And his promise, as the outline calls it, is described as shining brightly, almost as if it's reaching up to the stars and spreading its light across the entire camp.
It's like his hope is becoming contagious.
And it has a real impact. The people in the camp experience this shared feeling of hope, like the beginning of a dream. It's a really powerful moment.
And then Idris does something incredibly selfless. He releases the wisp.
He doesn't try to hold on to it for himself. He lets it go, knowing that it has the power to bring hope to others.
He watches it fly over the fences, those symbols of confinement, and head towards a world beyond the camp.
The outline is so beautiful here. It describes the wisp carrying the essence of a song, those vibrant colors of rain, the fresh scent of new beginnings, and the collective power of so many untold stories. As it travels, it reaches more and more people, whispering the simple but profound message, someday, you. It's like a reminder that hope can transcend boundaries, that change is possible even in the most difficult circumstances.
It's such a powerful ending. It really emphasizes the universality of hope. It's not just for Idris, it's for everyone. So, looking at the big picture, what are the key themes or takeaways from Wisp?
Well, the most obvious one, and the one we've been talking about a lot, is hope. The book really emphasizes that even in the most challenging situations, even in a refugee camp, hope can exist.
It's about the resilience of the human spirit.
Right, and what's so interesting about Idris's story is that his hope isn't rooted in nostalgia or a longing for the past. It's about the potential of the future, the unknown. It's this pure, almost childlike hope that things can get better.
It's a reminder that we all have the capacity for hope, no matter what we've been through.
Absolutely. Another important theme is memory. For the adults in the camp, their memories provide comfort, a connection to their identity, and fuel their hope for a future that might resemble their past.
It shows how important our past experiences are in shaping who we are.
But then you have Idris, who has no such memories to draw on. His hope is focused entirely on an unlived future. It raises some interesting questions about how we cope with displacement, with the loss of home and identity.
It's like the book is asking us to think about different ways of finding hope, different ways of rebuilding your life when everything familiar has been taken away.
Exactly. Beyond those more personal themes, Wisp also serves a really important purpose in fostering understanding and empathy for the refugee experience. By telling the story from Idris's perspective, it invites readers, especially young readers, to see the world through his eyes.
It humanizes the refugee experience.
Right. It shows the harsh realities of life in a refugee camp, but it also highlights the shared humanity of the people living there. They have dreams, hopes, fears, just like everyone else.
It's a powerful tool for building compassion and understanding.
And we shouldn't forget the theme of imagination and storytelling. In a place like a refugee camp where there's so much restriction and hardship, those things become incredibly important. The Wisp itself can be seen as a symbol of stories, of shared human experiences, and of the power of imagination to create hope, even in the darkest of times.
It's a reminder that even when we feel powerless, we still have the ability to imagine a better future. And sometimes That's all we need to keep going.
So for anyone who's been touched by Wisp, the outline mentions some other books that explore similar themes. If you're interested in reading more about the refugee experience, there's Salma the Syrian Chef by Danny Ramadan.
No, I've heard of that one.
It's about a Syrian family who has to flee their home, and it focuses on the power of food to connect people to their past and create a sense of belonging.
It sounds lovely.
There's also Refugee by Alan Gratz, which tells the stories of three young people seeking refuge in different historical periods. It's a really powerful book that shows how the refugee experience transcends time and place.
That's a good one. And there's My Name Is Not Refugee by Kate Milner, which provides a very simple and direct explanation of what it means to be a child refugee. It's a great book for starting conversations with younger children about this topic.
And we can't forget The Journey by Francesca Sana. It's a beautifully illustrated book that tells a really poignant story about the refugee experience. It's one of those books that just stays with you long after you've read it.
I love those kinds of books. And there's Lubna and Pebble by Wendy Medor, which is a heartwarming story about a young girl who finds comfort in a pebble and then shares that comfort with a new arrival at the refugee camp. It's a great reminder of the power of small acts of kindness.
And finally, there's Teacup by Rebecca Young, which is about a boy who has to leave his home and finds a new place and a new friend. It's a really gentle story about loss, resilience, and the importance of connection.
So many great books out there. Now, our outline also suggests some books that focus on hope in the face of adversity. One that stands out is Rain Before Rainbows by Smriti Prasadam Halls. It's about finding joy and hope after experiencing sorrow and loss. The illustrations are just beautiful.
Maybe Tomorrow by Charlotte Agel is another good one. It deals with themes of loss and healing and emphasizes the importance of friendship and navigating difficult times. It's a really heartwarming story.
And for younger children, there's The Little Book of Hope by Zach Bush and Laurie Friedman. It's a simple and accessible introduction to the concepts of hope, optimism, and resilience. It's a great book for helping kids understand that even when things are tough, there's always reason to hope.
So many amazing books to choose from. Now, I always find it fascinating to learn a bit about the authors and illustrators behind these books. Zana Fraillon, the author of Wisp, was actually born in Melbourne, Australia, but she spent her early childhood in San Francisco.
Interesting.
And get this, she loved reading as a child, which might have been influenced by the fact that she was farsighted.
That makes sense.
She later studied history and became a primary school teacher, both of which have clearly had an impact on her writing.
It sounds like she has a really interesting background.
She does. And one thing that's really apparent in her work is her commitment to exploring human rights issues. Her book, The Bone Sparrow, is a powerful example of this. It tells the story of the Rohingya people and their struggle for survival.
It's a really important book.
It is. And The Bone Sparrow actually received an Amnesty Scillip Honor, which is a prestigious award that recognizes books that promote human rights. So it's clear that Zana Fraillon is deeply committed to using her writing to raise awareness about these important issues.
It's so inspiring to see authors using their platform to make a difference.
Absolutely. She's also written several other notable books, including The Ones That Disappeared, The Lost Soul Atlas, and The Way of Dog. She currently lives back in Melbourne with her family and dogs, and she enjoys exploring museums and hidden places.
Sounds like she has a pretty interesting life outside of writing, too.
She does. She actually compares exploring museums and hidden places to starting a new book. She says it's full of unknown potential and the thrill of discovery.
I love that analogy. Now let's talk about the illustrator of Wisp, Graham Baker-Smith. He's a really accomplished artist.
He is. He's actually won the prestigious Kate Greenaway Medal, which is a huge honor in the world of children's book illustration.
Wow.
While our outline doesn't mention an award specifically for Wisp, the fact that he's a Kate Greenaway Medal winner speaks volumes about the quality of his work. And Wisp itself was long listed for the Kate Greenaway Award in 2020, so it's clearly a book that's been recognized for its exceptional illustrations.
It's amazing to see how Zana Fraillon's words and Graham Baker-Smith's visuals come together to create such a powerful and moving story.
It really is a beautiful collaboration.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Wisp, A Story of Hope, it's clear that this is a truly special book. The story itself, with its gentle narrative and powerful message of hope, is incredibly moving. And when you combine that with those stunning illustrations, it's an experience that really stays with you.
It's a book that I think everyone should read, regardless of age. It's a reminder that hope can exist even in the darkest of times, and that even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
It's a story about the resilience of the human spirit, the the importance of empathy and understanding, and the power of imagination to create a better future.
And it leaves us with this really important question. What role can we play in fostering hope in our own communities and in the world around us?
It's a question worth pondering. So for all of you out there who are always searching for those aha moments, those nuggets of real understanding, I hope our deep dive into Wisp, A Story of Hope, has given you something to think about.
I hope so too. It's a book that might seem simple on the surface, but it has so much depth and meaning.
It's a reminder that even in a world that can often feel dark and hopeless, there's always reason to believe in the possibility of a brighter future.
And that even the smallest spark of hope can ignite a flame that can spread far and wide.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.